The warship Eternal Dominion hung in orbit above the third planet of the Sol system like a predator circling its prey. General Kaelzer stood at the command deck's panoramic viewport, his 4 amber eyes scanning the blue-white marble below. He had conquered 47 worlds. He had made star systems kneel. He had never, in 300 standard years of military service, encountered a species that made his mandibles twitch with something dangerously close to uncertainty. Until now. General. His tactical officer, Vren, approached with a data slate. The human delegation has arrived at Docking Bay 7. How many? Kaelzer asked, still watching Earth rotate slowly beneath him. 1, sir. Kaelzer turned. His elongated neck swiveled with mechanical precision. They sent 1 representative? To negotiate the terms of their surrender? Yes, General. 1 human. Commander Darian Voss. He came alone, unarmed, and Vren hesitated, which was unusual for a species that did not hesitate. He brought something with him. A weapon? We are not certain. Darian Voss walked through the corridors of the Eternal Dominion with his hands in his pockets and what the alien crew could only describe as a disturbingly casual expression. He was tall by human standards, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped dark hair and a jaw that looked like it had argued with several walls in one. His uniform bore no decorations. He needed none. Walking beside him, barely reaching his elbow, was a child. A human child, no older than 9 or 10 standard years, with wide brown eyes that darted around the alien warship not with fear, but with the unbridled, weaponized curiosity that only a human child possessed. She wore a small backpack covered in faded patches and carried a worn notebook. Her name was Jo. The guards escorting them exchanged nervous glances. The Kelthari people had encountered many species. None of them had ever brought a child onto a warship as a negotiation tactic. It defied every known protocol of warfare, diplomacy, and basic sanity. General Kaelzer was waiting in the command conference chamber when the doors slid open. He rose to his full height, nearly 8 feet of armored exoskeleton and cold authority, and stared down at the 2 humans. Commander Voss met his gaze without blinking. The child stared at Kaelzer's carapace and immediately opened her notebook. Commander Voss, Kaelzer began, his translator rendering his clicks and resonance tones into flat human speech. You come to negotiate the terms of. Hold on a second, General. Voss raised a hand, then glanced down. Jo, you good? Jo was already sketching something furiously. His shoulder plating is asymmetrical, she announced to no one in particular. Is that structural or decorative? Can I ask him? Voss looked back at Kaelzer with an expression that said I apologize for nothing. She's going to ask you anyway. Better to just let her. Kaelzer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of profound confusion among his kind. You brought a child. I brought my niece. She's visiting for the week and her school does this thing where students document a memorable experience. Seemed appropriate. This is a war negotiation. It is, Voss agreed pleasantly, pulling out a chair and sitting down as though he were at a moderately interesting business lunch. Which is exactly why I'm here, and exactly why you're going to listen to what I have to say. The silence that followed was the kind that empires were built on. Kaelzer had used silence as a weapon for centuries. He had let it press down on lesser beings until they cracked, until they begged, until they offered him everything just to fill the void. Voss sat in it like a man who'd been waiting for a bus. Jo pulled a granola bar from her backpack, broke it in half, and offered a piece to the nearest alien guard. The guard, a 7-foot reptilian warrior who had fought in 9 campaigns, looked down at the small offered hand and then, in what would later be described in his after-action report as a momentary lapse in threat assessment, took it. Jo beamed. Kaelzer felt something deeply uncomfortable move through his neural net. He pressed forward. Commander Voss. Your species has resisted our fleet for 11 months. You have destroyed 43 of our vessels. You have repelled 4 planetary assault attempts. You have, he consulted his data slate, sent boarding parties onto our ships that sank during combat. Morale tactic, Voss said. Works great. One of your pilots disabled a cruiser by flying directly through it. Ensign Myers. Yes. She's fine, by the way. Cracked ribs and a lot of paperwork. Kaelzer set down his data slate. We have catalogued your military capabilities. We have run projections. You should not be winning. Voss tilted his head. And yet. Why? The single word carried 300 years of military bewilderment. Kaelzer had asked it quietly, almost against his will. He had read every report. He had reviewed every engagement. And he still did not understand the humans. Voss looked at him for a long moment. Then he glanced at Joe, who was now comparing the texture of the alien conference table to a sample she'd apparently collected from the docking bay. He smiled, not a diplomatic smile, not a calculated smile, but the real kind, the kind that reached somewhere deep. You want to understand us, Voss said. That's actually why I brought her. For the next 40 minutes, Joe Me New York Dye explained to General Kaelzer, Supreme Commander of the Kelthari 7th Armada, conqueror of 47 worlds, why humans were difficult to beat. She did not use military terminology. She used her notebook. She drew a diagram of a human family. She explained the concept of a grandmother who drives 4 hours through a snowstorm because her grandchild has a fever. She explained what a big brother does when someone at school makes his little sister cry. She talked about the firefighters who ran toward the burning buildings on a planet called Earth, in a city called New York, on a day the humans marked every year because they refused to forget. She explained stubbornness. She explained spite. She explained the particular, incomprehensible human phenomenon of the underdog, of a species that, when told it cannot, hears something functionally equivalent to a dare. Kaelzer listened. His tactical officer, Vren, was taking notes. We do not fight because we are powerful, Voss said quietly, when Joe paused to accept a glass of water from a guard who had apparently decided she was under his personal protection. We fight because the thing behind us matters more than the thing in front of us. You've been trying to conquer us. We've been trying to go home. Those are the same direction, Kaelzer said slowly. Exactly. The war did not end that day. Wars rarely do. But something shifted in the Eternal Dominion's conference room, something tectonic and quiet, the way great things often move. Kaelzer looked at the child who had sketched his asymmetrical shoulder plating, eaten half a granola bar, and explained the soul of a species with a worn notebook and brown eyes that held no fear whatsoever. Why is she not afraid? He asked finally. It had been bothering him since the docking bay. Voss looked at Joe. Joe looked up at Kaelzer, 8 feet of alien general, 4 eyes, mandibles, the weight of conquest in his posture, and shrugged. He's just a person, she said simply. The room was very quiet. Kaelzer, conqueror of 47 worlds, felt something ancient and armored shift inside his chest. She is correct, he said at last. His voice was strange. Rough. We are just people. Voss nodded. He didn't make it into a victory. He didn't need to. So. He leaned forward and folded his hands on the table. Let's talk about what it looks like if 2 groups of people decide to stop burning things and start building them instead. 3 weeks later, the preliminary ceasefire was signed. Joe's school project received the highest marks her teacher had ever given. The entry read, I visited a starship and met a general who was trying very hard. Commander Voss says the hardest part of any war is remembering that the enemy is also trying to get home. I think that's true. Also, the alien food was weird, but the guard named Vren let me keep a piece of his armor plating for my collection. In the Eternal Dominion's official battle logs, the engagement with humanity was eventually reclassified. Not as a conquest. not as a defeat. As a contact. First contact, properly made, not between fleets, not between weapons, but between a child with a notebook and a general with 4 eyes who finally, after 300 years, learned to be uncertain. And uncertainty, it turned out, was the beginning of everything worth building.